I used to not like having tasks in my Obsidian notes because it didn't work well with the other productivity apps I use. Having to manually copy and move them into my calendar to plan my day felt tedious. I wanted it to be as easy as dragging them into specific times in my calendar. Additionally, I wanted to see all my tasks in one place, including ones from other apps like ClickUp or Notion. But since Obsidian's tasks are stored locally as plain markdown text, there was no easy way to do so. And so, I felt like I had to make a sacrifice. Either keep my tasks with my notes, or keep them separate for easy planning. Fortunately, you can now have the best of both worlds. Morgen recently released a new feature that integrates Obsidian with its powerful calendar app. After trying it out, this synchronization across my notes, tasks, and calendar felt liberating. It opened up new workflow possibilities. Insights from our notes and highlights can now be quickly turned into planned action items. We can create global hotkeys to add new tasks into any note, like projects we're working on. And beyond the integration itself, making the switch to text-based tasks has also been its own rabbit hole of potential. Planning out projects became easier as I can now freely move and modify tasks at the speed of thought, the same way as I would text. And with the right prompts, you can overcome planning paralysis. By using AI, you can make detailed plans that you can easily copy-paste into Obsidian. When it comes time to start working on them, I'm only one click away from important information and relevant notes. On top of other cool things like creating templates for tasks, going beyond the default checkboxes to create custom statuses, there's so much more things you could do with the power of markdown tasks. So, in this video, I'll show you how you can set all this up yourself using Obsidian and Morgen, as well as show examples for how I've been using these features. First, I'll show how to set up your Obsidian. Right now, I just have a simple project note to set up this Morgen and Obsidian integration, which then has some tasks. For the integration to work, we need to level up these basic checkboxes by downloading the Tasks plugin in Obsidian. So if we go to Settings, we can go to Community Plugins, turn on Community Plugins, and browse. Search up the Tasks plugin, and install it, and enable it. So now if we go back and go to this task, press space, we can begin adding properties to our tasks. And for the setup, we'll be focusing on 3 specifically. If we type ID, we can generate a unique ID, which is required for it to show in Morgen. We can also type in due to add a due date. And in here, we can just choose any of the ones here, or we can type our own. In this case today is September 25th. Lastly, we can also set up a priority for the task. If we just type in priority, we can choose from these. So now let's just add IDs for the rest of these tasks, as well as due dates for today. We'll also set the priority of this one to the highest, just because we kind of need it for the integration to work. And then we can also set the ID for this, due date today, and priority to medium, since it's not necessary, but is nice to have. Let's also check this task off since we did download the Tasks plugin. So now that we have some tasks ready to be synced, we can now set up Morgen. So if I just open up Morgen, you will need a paid subscription to use the Obsidian integration feature, but you can try it for 7 days for free and even get 10% off using my affiliate link in the description. Once you have the app downloaded, you can head to Settings, Preferences, and then Local Integrations. For Obsidian, we can click Connect the Vault, and we can find the vault we have. Select Folder. We can also play around with the different options here. You can choose to import tasks from all notes or just the ones modified in the last 30 days. I'm going to choose from all notes. You can also choose to only import tasks with existing IDs, or you can import all of the tasks in Obsidian and then just add IDs to them. I personally just like to only import tasks with IDs because there's some checklists in my vault that I don't want added into Morgen. Only other setting that you might find useful is the ignore directory setting. In this case, you can choose the folder where you keep templates in if you don't want to include those. But yeah, we can now exit out of here, So now we can access our Obsidian tasks by clicking on the Obsidian icon, and here we can see the tasks we made earlier. We can see things like the note it's from, the priority we set, and the other characteristics of the task, like the due date. So now, to plan our day, we can simply drag the tasks into the calendar, update the due date if needed, and then resize as needed. We can also open the note in Obsidian by clicking on the task and then clicking the Open in Obsidian button. And now, since we completed the task, we can either complete it here or complete it in Morgen by checking it off. If we check our Obsidian note, it was checked off. So yeah, that's technically all you need to do for the integration, but as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot more potential if we combine other plugins as well. And one way to enhance the experience is to easily add tasks into Obsidian. So to do so, we can create a global hotkey to add a task in any note. To do so, we will need another plugin called Quick Add. Install and enable. If we go to the option settings, we can create a new choice in Quick Add to capture something. So I'm going to click on here, change the type of choice to capture, and I'm going to name this add task in note, and then add the choice. Then to configure it, we can go to the settings. We can format whatever we type in as a task, and we can also choose where we want to put this task in the note. In my case, I just like putting it after a header called tasks, because that's what I use in my project notes. And I also like adding it at the end of the section, so newer tasks are at the bottom. And of course, not all our notes will have the tasks header, so we can also enable this option to create it if we don't have one in the note. And I personally just like to add this at the top as well. You can also choose to open the note after creating it, but I personally like to just use it as a quick capture method and don't really want to jump into Obsidian if I was busy doing something else. But alternatively, I can just open Obsidian myself if I need to. So I would keep this off. Now we can set up the capture format of the task, so we can use this value variable and name it as task name. So when we run this command, this will be what we are asked to fill in. And once we do, it will be added here. Next up would be to add the task plugin related properties. So first would be the ID of the task. This has to be unique or else it's going to cause duplicates. So what I like to do is create a timestamp of the current date and time. You could also add the year, but I highly doubt you'll accidentally create a task in the same time. Next up, we can manually set the priority. So just like how we created a value variable for the task name, we can also create one for priority. And to create a variable where you can choose a preset value instead of typing in one yourself, you just have to add commas into the title. So instead of the title of the task, I just have the different options here. So the first one is just empty with a space and then a comma, and then I have the most common priority I use, which is medium, and then the rest in descending order. And lastly, of course, is the due date. And to do so, we can just add the due date emoji, and then after, add a variable for the due date, and then format it in year, month, date format. Now, this won't work off the bat because what we have to do is download some other plugins for this to work. For this timestamp ability to work, we'll have to download the templater plugin. And for this due date to not only take in literal typed in dates like this, but also natural language dates like tomorrow, we will have to download the natural language dates plugin. So let's do that. If we go to community plugins, browse, search up templater, install, and enable. And then we can also do the same for natural language dates. So now if we head back to the quick add plugin settings, now to turn this into a command, we just need to click on this lightning icon. And if we exit, open up command palette, control or command P, search up task, we can see it in here. But of course, this is only accessible in Obsidian. We want to make this a global hotkey we can access anywhere on our computer. So to do so, we'll have to download another plugin called the Global Hotkeys plugin. Install, enable, and then in here we can search up the command and we can type in the hotkey we want to use. In my case, that is just Control, Shift, Alt, equal sign. Now if we exit this and minimize Obsidian, let's open something else. Pretend this isn't Morgen, or else it would be kind of redundant since we can literally just create a task here as well. We just have to press the hotkey, and then as you can see, it opens up Obsidian. First, it makes us choose which note we want to add the task to. Since we only have one note, it will open that one note. We can type in the due date. I'll just choose tomorrow. And then we can type in the task name. We can say, learn how to efficiently organize markdown tasks. And then we can choose the priority, which in this case would just be medium. So now if I open up Obsidian, we can see that it worked. And then if I open up Morgen, we can also see it in there. And just as a quick example for other notes that may not have the task header set up, if we create one, example project, and I'm just gonna run this locally. You can choose example project, not even gonna set a due date, and just write a simple task name like task 1, and then set no priority. We can see it show up here and create the task header. And now if we go into Morgen, it seems to not add it because there is no valid date. So if we just remove this, it seems to work. If you want to hide the IDs, there's also a companion plugin that Morgen made to hide them, which you can download here, but I personally don't mind. So now that we have an efficient capture system, let's go over how I like to use this. The main use case I found the most benefit from is managing my personal projects in notes, just like how you've been seeing here. When I'm brainstorming what I need to do for a project, I can just write out all my tasks, just like how I would normal text. And since it is just normal markdown text, we can create lists and sublists quite easily. Maybe we wanted to create a subtask, so I'm just going to indent and create subtask 1. And then I just want to make another task, subtask 2. And maybe beyond tasks, you wanted to add links to other notes or text, which you can easily do so under a task just by turning it into a normal list and then adding in the text you want to mention, or maybe the link to the note. Now, this does work for basic needs, but if you want to enhance the behavior and capabilities of the outlining experience, I also highly recommend you use the Outliner plugin. Go to Community Plugins, Outliner, and install and enable. If you go to the settings, the two main ones I want to point out are how you can better visualize the hierarchy and nested relationship of your tasks and bullets by drawing vertical indentation lines. And with this option enabled, you can change the way that Control A works when using it on a list. Because if I go back here, traditionally, if I disable it, if you press Control A, it will select everything in the note. But if you enable this, it will only select the content of that list, which I find helpful. But then if you want to actually select everything, you can just press it again, and eventually you can. If you press it again, you will select the children, and if you press it one more time, you'll select everything. There we go. And if you continue pressing it, you will slowly start to select more things in the hierarchy. And then lastly would be the header it's in. The other major benefit I find with this plugin is that it gives you a set of hotkeys you can use combined with the default Obsidian ones to move these tasks at the speed of thought. So the main ones I use, we can head to hotkeys. There's toggle checkbox status, which can turn a line into a checkbox. I like having this as Control 5. To create lists, we can then go to toggle bullet list. I like as Control R. And then you can also create hotkeys for moving lines up and down. So if we type move line, we can set moving down to Control 2 and move line up to Control 1. Nice, more conflicts. This was inspired by Nick Milo's Outliner video. Now that I handled all those conflicts, we can also start adopting the Outliner specific plugins where we can move entire lists and sublists up and down. Now if we go back, we can see this in action. So now if I create a new task, task 3, I can just press Control 5 to turn it into a task, and I can press it again to check it. But then maybe instead of a task, I want it to be subtext for task 2. So then I can just press Control R and then add it by indenting it. But maybe I want this to actually be under task 1, so I can just press Control 1, or maybe not, Control 2. Then for the more advanced usage with the Outliner plugin, we can set up plugins to move lists and sublists down and up, which I like to have as alternate versions of my normal ones. So this one would be Control-Alt-2, this one would be Control-Alt-1. So now if I go to subtask 1, Control-Alt-2, you can see that even the children text gets moved as well. But if I were to just press the normal one, it would only move the task. Another thing is to easily fold and unfold these lists, because eventually when you have a lot of tasks and text, it might feel overwhelming to manage. So to easily do so, we can also use the hotkeys to fold and unfold lists. And I personally like to keep it as Control up and down, since my WASD keys can also be modified to be arrow keys. So if I go back, if I find this to be not relevant right now, I can press Control and up, just like that, and unfold it with down. So yeah, once I'm done outlining my plan, I can choose which ones I need to add to Morgen. You can instantly plan things that have a set deadline. Maybe there's a special event you need to attend, and you can just easily add that by adding the ID and the due date. Maybe it's Sunday, but otherwise I don't always add the IDs and due dates to my tasks immediately. Instead, I like to only plan for a week's worth, since it's kind of hard to accurately plan the time it takes to do things. Maybe at the end of the week you'll have some tasks left over, which then will have conflicts with the rest of the plans you made. Another thing I like to do is, since I like to time block in around 1 to 2 hour time blocks for any deep work sessions, sometimes I don't even import all of the tasks, because if I have a lot of subtasks for a task, and these probably take like 10 minutes each, instead of adding all of these to Morgen, I will just add the parent task instead. So then when I do go to Morgen, I time block it out and I go to visit it. That is where I can see all of the minor tasks I have to complete. So now with this, we can confidently create complex project plans. But one thing I realized when I was using this practice is that I also wanted more custom checkbox types beyond the unchecked and checked versions. For example, what if I wanted to indicate that a task was optional, or if I wanted to have canceled tasks that I don't want to do but then still want to keep there? This is where we can download yet another plugin, multi-state checkboxes. Enable, go to options, and in here we can create a list of the different statuses we want to have. In my case, I want not started, which will just be a space. I want in progress, which is a slash, question, which is a question, canceled, which is a minus, and then completed, which is an X. So we can only enable these and disable the rest. So now if we go back, we can also set a hotkey to toggle them on by searching up multi and then setting this to Control-Alt-5. So now if I want to toggle between these extra statuses, I can just press Control-Alt-5. As you can see, it's not really showing because we'll also need a theme that is compatible with these complex types. In my case, I just personally like to use the minimal theme, which is compatible. So then if I go back, press it again, normal, in progress, question, canceled, and completed. And to sync this up with Morgen, we can configure the tasks plugin to handle these different statuses differently. There already is some set up for the in progress and canceled, but I also want to add one for the question one, because I personally don't want the question tasks to show up in Morgen if I have a due date for it. So then we can set the symbol to be question mark, status name will be question, and then next status symbol will be complete, and status type will be non-task. So then if we save this, let's just create IDs for both of these tasks so they show up in Morgen. If we go back, you can see subtask 1, subtask 2. But then if I were to change this to a question and this one to canceled, we can see that cancel doesn't show, but then question still does. So I guess we'll have to change this into a canceled task. Now if we go back, it also disappears. So yeah, that was a lot of custom plugins and configuration. Obviously, you don't have to adopt all of these different features, but feel free to experiment and see which ones can help complement and elevate your task management workflows. So yeah, you're now probably tired of me talking about different plugins and features. What does this setup look like in action? A simple example is maybe you had a certain idea that you were writing about and wanted to explore, but you ran out of time to do so, so you wanted to schedule it for another day. With the Tasks plugin, you can just quickly add a due date, tomorrow, add ID, and then schedule it. So then when you plan your day tomorrow, you can easily see this task. Maybe it's something like finish writing note. So then when you head to Morgen, when you're planning for tomorrow, you can see the task, you can drag it onto calendar, and then you can quickly open it and finish writing. When you're done, just check it off. For a more complex use case, something that I've been using it for has been to plan out a new podcast I'm starting with my friend Aiden. And part of my responsibility is to create short form clips from the podcast and upload these clips onto TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. I've never personally done something like that, so I looked to Claude projects to help me brainstorm a plan. I have a system prompt to help me break it down into actionable tasks, which was built off of a prompt someone else used to achieve complex things from scratch, like create a nuclear fuser in their college dorm. On top of his instructions, I also asked it to format the tasks in Markdown to potentially include those question status tasks that are optional or might need more of my user intervention, and also add sublists and Markdown headers after it created and brainstormed the plan. So yeah, I gave it a list of objectives I wanted to achieve, and it ended up creating rather detailed plans for doing each. I also asked it to give time estimates for how long some things would take, so I can keep it in mind when planning out my time spent on it. So I copied the Markdown and put it into my Obsidian and cleaned up the tasks by removing and rearranging some. Now, I haven't planned this out in Morgen yet since I'm unsure on when I'll start, but when I do, I'll probably only want to spend about max 2 hours a day working on it. So then for the week, I'll look at the tasks it set out for me and take their time estimations into account. Honestly, this could probably just be done within 2 hours or less. So then, based on the tasks it made, I'll group them into ones I think I can complete within 2 hours. Honestly, this does not seem like it would take a day or 6 hours. This could probably be done in 2. So I'm going to turn this into a task and then schedule it for the first day. Next one would be learning the software I'll be using to create these short form clips. This once again seems like it could be done in 2 hours, so I will just turn this one into a task in Morgen and set it for tomorrow. Setting up a style will also probably take 2 hours. Set that for the day after, and you get the pattern from there. So now if I close this, I can start planning it in Morgen. So at the beginning of the day, I will look at what is due, and based on the other priority tasks I have, I will create my own personalized schedule for completing everything. Maybe I add this task first since it's more important, schedule it here, and then have this right after for an hour. But then I estimated 2 hours, so I'll actually create another block as well for 2 hours. It seems like it got removed. Paste it here. There we go. And then this would be break time to do whatever I want. And then once I start working on it, I can just open it in Obsidian, follow the checklist. Done, 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 done. You can also disable this automatic completion date if you want over here and cancel as well. And then once I'm done everything, I can just check off this task and get on with the rest of my day. So yeah, by following the tutorial, I hope you can continue to experiment with the features to best implement your own ideal productivity workflow. If you want other apps to improve your Obsidian experience, you can check out how I manage my reading library using Readwise Reader in this video right here. But if you want to dive deeper into how I manage my tasks and projects, you can visit my notes sharing how I do so at notes.johnmaverick.com. This has been John Maverick. Stay mindful.